Welcome to the IVM Podcast Network.
You're listening to the Paodcast, presented by the Daily Pao.
This is Pranati,
Amit,
and Purva.
and we're from the Daily Pao, a city-specific food and culture website, and this is our fortnightly podcast,
The Paodcast.
Now, in this episode, we'll be talking about a new supper club in our food section, Bombay Binge. In our culture segment, we interview Sharin Bhatti, who runs two cultural venues in the city, the Hive and Cuckoo Club. And in Metro Station, our city, history and news showcase, we interview Ritika Saraf, who runs the tour company Someplace Else. So stay tuned for Bombay Binge.
Bombay Binge.
In this episode of Bombay Binge, we'll be talking about a new supper club. Purva, you want to tell us about it?
Yeah, so it's called Lovefools. And
you're a Cardigans fan.
No.
It sounds like a play. It doesn't sound like a supper club.
Yeah, and I asked her why the name, and she said it's this lady called Sarita Pereira, and she said it's because for all who go to any lengths to pursue their passion. So Lovefools launched last month in Bandra, but Sarita has actually been operating for a year now, but it's only been like through word of mouth, and her circle of friends and acquaintances have been attending it. Now Sarita is an ad professional, and she quit that, and she was like, what do I do? She was having some sort of a, she wanted to switch careers, and
Were you going to say midlife crisis?
I was going to say something crisis, but
Quarter life crisis, maybe.
I don't know how old Sarita is, but she then decided to switch to food, which I think a lot of people are doing now. There are so many people.
It's the new Ferrari.
So like I said, it launched in Bandra last month, and before I tell you all Sarita's story, how it operates is basically she's taken up this beautiful bungalow in Bandra that coincidentally is called Pereira House. She doesn't own it or anything. She's renting the space with a friend who's an interior designer who has done up the space, and it's really cute. It's like this, it has a living room and this room and a kitchen, so I guess it's like a studio apartment, but enough space, and there's a little balcony that looks over at Pali Village Cafe. So, and what they do is she runs it on every Saturday of the month, and usually she only takes about 14 guests.
She does it weekly.
Yeah, it's a weekly thing, and they're communal tables.
Okay.
And you can also book her for private events, but the communal dining she started last month. And what Sarita does is it's always an 8-course menu, and each course is a different cuisine, and she never reveals the menu. Okay. It's completely omakase, so you show up and it's a complete surprise menu. Okay. What she does do is when people sign up for the meals, which you can do via the website, they have a website called lovefools.com, and she'll ask them a few questions. When she'll call up the diners, and she'll ask them a few questions about their eating preferences, about how adventurous they are. She'll try and gauge all of that, and that's how she'll sort of craft this meal.
But so tell us a little bit about how you get to eat this meal. You have to go to the website, you have to register.
You go to the website and you write to them. Essentially.
You say, okay, I don't eat octopus, I don't eat...
No, so then, once you just write to them saying,
I guess
I'm
once
interested
you're
in
selected, then
Lovefools,
she calls you.
You just say, I'm interested in Lovefools, and how do I sign up for a meal? Because there are no menus put up, right? So you have to first show interest, but first you need to know what Lovefools is. I mean, I've lived in Bandra all my life, and I didn't know Pereira House was hosting these events. So it's a pretty secret affair so far, and because she hosts such a small number of people, it's also pretty restricted in terms of how many people can access it as of now. I mean, I will be attending a Lovefools dinner very soon, but that's also because she accommodated me. I mean, the Lovefools dinners are actually booked till the end of December. So, she's already very popular, but that's also because of word of mouth. That's how it has spread. Now, a little bit about Sarita. So like I said, she quit her job in advertising, and she she bought all these books by, renowned Michelin chefs. And she was like, I wanted to get into the whole technique of cooking. And it all started with her curiosity with aioli. Like, how do you master aioli? And in the meantime, she had applied to like culinary schools like Le Cordon Bleu in Paris and another university. And in the meantime, on a whim, she also wrote to Nandu Jubani. Now, it sounds like an Indian name, but he's a Catalan chef.
Sounds like the name of a numerologist, to be honest.
I was also like, taken aback. So Nandu Jubani, very interesting name. She interned under Jubani, who was a Michelin chef. He had trained under Ferran Adria. She went to his restaurant, which is in Vic in Spain, and for 2 months. And what's incredible is that she just wrote to him saying, I'm very interested in cooking. I don't have any formal experience nor training, and I'm just keen to get into the food scene. And a couple of weeks later, I guess because he's not very fluent with English, but somebody would have conveyed this to him, and he invited her over to learn under him. And that training is what she's now applying to the supper project. And so it's 8 courses, all different cuisines, so it can range from Lebanese to Catalan, Moroccan, Balinese, French, Italian. And Sarita herself is half Goan, and she's lived in Bombay most of her life. And she has a sommelier friend who will curate the wine pairing. You can take a wine pairing or one without. And it's a 3,000 rupee menu per person. And like I said, it's a complete surprise. And she tries to not repeat dishes either. So if you've attended one, say, in November, there are likely to be no repeats through November at all, which I think is pretty incredible.
But is it that easy to get in, or is it like, so you just write to her?
Well, yeah. So, I mean, like I said, I also found out about her because somebody said, hey, have you heard about Lovefools? So somebody tagged somebody, and I just wrote to her saying, I'm interested in this, but I wrote in the capacity of a journalist. And that's when she told me, like, we are booked out for the rest of the month. So you can inquire similarly through the website. And she's pretty responsive all through her Facebook. And
so there is a Facebook page. This is out there in the open. Because, page. I mean, this concept of secret supper. Now, this whole concept sounded a little bit to me like Sofa Sounds, and we had Hartej from Sofa Sounds on the podcast a couple of weeks ago, and it seems to function in similar fashion, right? You just you write to them. I mean, they have a website. You just apply to be on it, and if they have space, they'll accommodate you. Of course, that's slightly larger.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it is sort of in that sense a secret gig. Like, this is a secret lunch or dinner.
Yeah, in the sense that it's not advertised.
It's not advertised.
Exactly.
You need to know, unless you.
Yeah.
I mean, the only way to know about it is if somebody told you.
Exactly, and even if she markets it, it's such a limited number of people that she can accommodate at this point. And I asked her if she has plans to increase the capacity because that house looks like it can accommodate more. But she's like, the precision or the kind of effort that goes into every single meal, I don't want to stretch it until I'm comfortable with a larger audience, which I think is a good way to go. And if she's getting a 15 people per week, and 3,000 rupees, it sounds like a good profitable venture is what it sounds like to me, which is also interesting about these secret supper projects. Like the other one that has been running for a while in Bombay is called the Secret Supper Project. It was launched around 2014 or end of 2013, and it's also by an ex or an investment banker or somebody, his name is Kanu Gupta. Now, he's kept his identity secret for a very long time. I revealed it because, I have been for a couple, and I have interacted with him, and I don't think there's any, there's no sort of rule around revealing his name, but he is just like a passionate cook, and he has a job in finance, but he started the Secret Supper Project as an alternative dining event in the city, and they've been really successful. Now, his whole idea was to host it. It's quite a different format from Lovefools. His idea was to host it in interesting spaces within Bombay. So apparently
he does it in people's homes.
He does
terraces.
it in people's homes, and he does them in, like, say, stores. They hosted a bar at Melange, which is it's a boutique. It's a fashion boutique at Altamont Road. He's done one apparently in Asiatic Library, which is something I read online. Now, this was the initial ones, which, this is after we started covering, or after I started attending them, or way before I started attending them. He's done them in like this makeshift kitchen of this ice creamery, and each meal has a theme, a different cook, and these are not chefs, these are home cooks who just want to experiment with different cuisines. And there's always a bar, and they're not cheap meals. They typically range from 3,000 to 3,500 per person, depending on what all is being offered. But well planned, well executed, a great mix of people. And he invites his own friends who are, say, you can be a boutique owner, you can be a lawyer, you can be, a banker, and he gets his friends to volunteer for the meals. So they become the servers for the night. And home cooks get a chance to showcase. So I've been for a Cantonese meal. I've been for one where, ice cream was the focus of the menu. So sweet and savory ice creams per course,
Was the food actually good?
Some cases average. I've been for 4 meals. Some cases average, some cases exciting. But I wasn't disappointed, or nor did I feel at any point that, oh my God, I spent so much money. I felt like I met a great bunch of people. It just felt nice to not eat in a regular restaurant. And they really sort of execute the secret part of it very well. So, for example, before Bombay Canteen actually opened to the public, the Secret Supper project, Kanu has partners. I only know of him as an active partner. I don't know the names of the others, but they collected us in the parking lot of Kamla Mills, close to Bombay Canteen. They blindfolded us, and an ambassador, they gave us like this sort of an Indian, like a spiced punch, which is on the Bombay Canteen menu now. And they blindfolded us, put us in the ambassador, and sort of drove us to the venue and took us into the kitchen. And the blindfold was only taken off once we were in the kitchen. So it's the back entrance of the Bombay Canteen. And then we ate there. So that's how Bombay Canteen launched, through the Secret Supper project.
Well, where did you exit from?
We exited from the regular entrance, because then it was like the grand reveal that you were the first set of people to see the Bombay Canteen, which now obviously everybody knows about, the Low Parel restaurant. So, it's interesting. And I think the most remarkable point is that there is a massive audience for this. A couple of weeks ago, I attended the Indian Accent Dinner at Magazine Street Kitchen, which also hosts, it's an alternative culinary event space. And I met this person at the table, and all their events are public, so they're not a Secret Supper format in any way. And I met this person who was not from the culinary world, and he was in the know about every, sort of new dining venture in the city. So there was this pork meal that we couldn't write about, where this cheesemaker was hosting, he was cooking a meal of 14 pork dishes from recipes he had picked up from across the country. And this person, like, I know this because it's my job to sort of keep tabs on what's happening in the food world. But this guy, he knew about all these events, and I'm like, wow, there is like a very involved audience for all these sort of...
The true foodies of the city. So, a Secret Supper, the one that you mentioned, how do people sign up for that?
To sign up for the Secret Supper project, you just have to email reservations@secretsupperproject.com, and once they sort of they'll view your profile on Facebook or ask you a couple of questions via email, and then they'll sign you up for their newsletter. And these are typically monthly dinners that they host.
Okay, so you don't know what you're signing up for when you email them?
You don't, but they'll give you a clue with each. They'll never reveal the menu, but they'll give you a clue.
No, but when you write to them, you don't know. Then they'll get back to you
saying...
No,
they generally do. I mean, that's how I signed up with them. They didn't know who I was, and I signed up as a layperson as well. So I got accepted.
Cool.
So that's it for
Bombay Binge.
For Bombay Binge, and we'll be back with the scene.
Hello there, my name is Naveen Narona, and as a gay person in India, I get asked a lot of stupid questions.
Beta, is it LGBT or eligibility?
How do two men procreate?
Bro, is Grindr better than Tinder or what?
We answer all these questions and much more on my podcast, Keeping It Queer, where I talk to individuals from the LGBT community in India and learn about their personal stories. Catch all the episodes on the IVM Podcast app or any other podcasting app you like. Till then, keep it queer.
The Scene.
So today on The Scene, we've got Sharin Bhatti, who runs the Hive, which is a very popular culture venue and a co-working space. And if you follow our weekend guides, there's probably never a week that the Hive doesn't feature in it. They've got loads of events, most of them comedy and theatre related, sometimes a bit of music, and sometimes really a bit of everything.
She also runs the Cuckoo Club by the Hive.
Yeah, which, by the way, was actually a more recent venture. And Sharin runs it with her partner Sudeep. And you guys have been doing this now for many, many years, but you only opened the Hive in 2014. And the Cuckoo Club was opened last year. But you all have been doing events for a long, long time. So do you want to tell us a little bit about the origins of the Hive?
Yeah, okay. So the Hive started in 2011. We opened in a small bungalow of New Kantwari. So we've pretty much existed within a 2-kilometer radius in Bandra. From Bandra to Khar to Choim now and back to Bandra.
Okay.
And we've just, I think, found a perfect spot around Carter Road. So we are just in and around that entire stretch. And we started the Hive to sort of, do a lot of experimental stuff that didn't seem fit in a lot of the bars that we used to traditionally do events in. And just taking that concept forward, we ended up opening like a little bigger space in a big, like, it's roughly 5,000 square feet bungalow. And the whole purpose of doing that was to, not just give artists a space to nurture and grow their alternative formats, but also give audiences something new to watch.
So, for example, what's an alternative format? What things were you experimenting with when you started?
So in 2009, we started doing, there was already an established open mic at the time at Zenzi that was hosted by Monica. But that leaning was more towards music. So we decided to segregate it into various art forms. So we did one for just spoken word, one for English comedy, and one for music. So music already had a scene, semblance of a scene at that point. And spoken word was something that people instantly took to, and that was, I think, a revelation for us because we saw all these poets who were coming and they instinctively knew what spoken word was without us having to tell them what it was. I mean, it took some work in the sense that we showed them a lot of Def Jam screenings, and so a lot of Hindustani poetry really blended into that genre. So people instantly started performing it. They would rehearse it, come, not use any text to sort of read it off. What we haven't seen happen is people not taking to the poetry slam format as much. But spoken word is something they really took to. So we decided to also see if we could do something in English comedy. And of
So the spoken word stuff, I remember you did this at places like Cafe Goa. I remember that used to exist near Mount Mary Steps.
Trafalgar Chalk, it was
Trafalgar
earlier.
Chalk,
I've
even
been
in
for a lot
Mocha
of
Mojo.
those.
And did you also do stuff at Aiba?
Yes, so we moved. I think one of the biggest reasons we did end up discovering all these alternative formats was that all of these bars were really open to giving us their non-performing nights, which was typically a Monday. So, and we were very happy to take that on because on a Monday night, whatever few tables are being served come in with zero expectations. So anyway, that audience is in a frame of mind where they're open to trying out something new, right? So a lot of what we did was not just, finding if there is a space where alternative art forms can develop, but also see what audiences are taking to, which was a great learning for us week on week, Most of the time we'd find, and Cafe Goa was one of those perfect spaces because if you guys have been to Cafe Goa, it literally it was in the garage of a building and it was supposed to be a parking spot, but it wasn't. And there was this little cavity of a closed room from all sides, boxed room, which just lent itself to being such a natural performance room, and the diners would sit around it.
Yeah.
So just that fact that, we would like literally grab people from all ends and tell them to come inside the room.
Well,
And
they used to do the best Goa sausages,
Yeah,
so that was
Three's
one
Pow
great
was very
reason to
good.
go to
yeah,
Cafe
and
Goa.
Fenny on rocks, that was like chocolate Baileys.
Yeah, if only it wasn't illegal. Now, so coming back to comedy.
Yeah.
Now, when you talk about the Hive, it really has been kind of this incubator for a lot of the comedians that have made it pretty big today.
Right.
And and they even talk about the Hive that way, and they sometimes come back to test out new material.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
how did that all happen?
So, our biggest focus has always been discovery of talent. We really like to be that first sort of platform where you will come and wet your first sort of jokes. So comedy just erupted in this country. I feel like since we started doing it in 2009 with the Comedy Store opening, Don What coming, and then now there are so many of these venues that are coming up. Comedians just have that much more to contribute to the alternative entertainment scene.
But you also have some sort of selection process or a vetting process. Do
Yeah,
these comedians
it's
have to
really
come in?
competitive.
Okay.
Also, one of the biggest things we love about what we do is we have this website called The Big Mic. So if you want to perform on any of our open mics, you have to register there. So we generally, in the last week of every month, we put out the entire slots for the next month. And it's literally like a flash sale. You will put up all the 4 events. There are 4 comedy open mics a month. You put them up, you refresh the page, all slots are gone. It's literally that
It's
quick.
tougher than Mami's film
It
screening.
is.
Yeah.
It is so competitive. People come. Mondays are our most hectic nights. Like anytime you walk into the Hive, people are just haggling for 4 minutes. Give me 2 minutes. I'll perform only half a minute. People will come all the way from Pune to perform as well. So it's really nice to see all these comedians sort of. It's very healthy competition. And I think one of the formats with comedy, also a reason why I feel comedy's taken off like the way it has, is everybody can relate to a story, and a lot of the stand-up that's being done is actually storytelling. So as compared to maybe music or poetry, which is a more acquired taste, comedy is either funny or it's not.
And these guys have been free to sort of test out, really sort of hone their skill at the Hive, right?
Yeah,
So who
so-
are some of the guys that have really sort of come up
Yeah,
since
who've been the
2009?
finds? Who've you...
Everybody, I think, from All India Bhakchot to East India Comedy to everybody from Shits and Giggles to Kanan.
They all
to
started
Biswa.
at the Hive.
They all started at our Big Mic platform. That has actually happened all over the country, from Hyderabad to Bangalore to Delhi to Bombay. It's just that since we started the Hive, it has come within the space. And I think from the new leg of comedians, there's this guy called Rahul Subramanian. He is hilarious. He's been a find. He started a YouTube channel as well. From the girls is Pavitra Shetty. She's coming up really well. A lot of these guys come and use our space to test out their material. So even when they have big shows coming up, they'll come and do trials with us, which we really like. We also, take time out to sit with them and, try and see what is going wrong, what can be done better.
And there's obviously an audience for this. Are these shows
People-
full or...
Most of them are full. A lot of the times we'll literally put up an event like 3 days before, and it'll sell out in no time.
Even the Monday.
Mondays, like I told you, are our biggest nights. Largely because we've been doing Mondays for like all these years. It's more 7 years we've been doing Mondays. So
Right.
people already know that Monday they'll come expecting a certain caliber, and they're very open. They're open to it being a really long night. A lot of the open mic talent will not be as high as their expectations may be, but it's still fun. They're very supportive and very willing, and that's, I think, one of the reasons why Hive is still around, is literally because the audience is there and they're willing to try out new things.
And have you seen the quality of comedy evolve over the years?
Yeah.
Has it become more sophisticated, more professional?
I think comedy has grown in the sense that there are now these alternative forms of comedy people are trying to look at. There is mime that is now coming up. There's magic that is now coming up. There is also storytelling which is now coming up. So we started doing this alternative comedy open mic called the alt mic for every other form of comedy that is not stand-up. So you have a lot of people trying to do things that are alternative. So they'll do a sketch. They'll do maybe an improv act. So I think what has happened to comedy is that it's grown out of just, like a knock-knock joke, or just, people reading out from like a slip of paper, or maybe trying to mime the West into things that could be relevant to them. But a lot of the things that are happening now are people are talking from their own own struggles, and which is really interesting to see because everybody's perspective is different. And a lot of them struggle with writing new content because they're constantly berating themselves to be funny all the time. So they naturally think about, it's literally like how, all of us like how you're just sitting outside and just chatting and laughing. It's literally that. A lot of the content comes out of that. So a lot of the comedians now also sit at the Hive and sort of work all day and sit and write jokes, and they constantly like throw off material at each other. Like literally, if you pass them by in a corridor, they'll sit with you and they'll want to test out material. You won't even know they're testing it out on you half of the time. You really think they're talking.
Okay.
But I think that's also essential to human behavior. We generally are happy people, right? We like to joke around. We like to pat each other's backs or whatever. So it's just one of those natural progression things.
So great. I mean, they're using it as a co-working space too.
Yeah, they clearly are all day.
So what are some of the challenges been for running both these venues? I mean, clearly things were going right because you decided to open a second one.
Correct.
But you've obviously had some challenges as with anybody who has trying to run sort of a creative space in a city like Bombay, which comes with its own.
Yeah, biggest one is rent.
Mm-hmm.
It's just unbelievable.
Which is why it's amazing that you have two places. So you have to pay
In Bandra.
two rents.
Yeah.
Well, technically Khar and Bandra.
There you go.
Which is practically the same thing.
Not really, because it's kind of hard to find the Hive. Everybody has their first time at the Hive and they're like, how did you get there? First you have to go past Carter Road, then you have to go to the Hanuman Mandir, and then you have to take the right from there, and then you have to look out for Ahmad Bakery, which nobody can actually find because it's in the corner. So the actually better thing is to tell them to look out for that store that is there, one grocery store which is actually bang opposite, and get down.
Surat store.
Yeah. So that's how I find it.
Oh, great. Surat store is a better landmark. I should use that.
So that's one challenge. But what are some of the real challenges?
That's
The
the
Cuckoo
biggest
Club
challenge.
actually is far easier to find, though.
It
It's
is
right next to
easier.
Candies.
Yeah,
So-
it is right next to Candies. That's true. Just this, I think, we are a self-funded small startup, and we never had like a rich uncle helping us out. So we've pretty much built everything from scratch. So it does get daunting, and also I think just finding funding in this country is a real big challenge. When I talk about funding, I mean government funding. There is really no support. So you pretty much are left on your own. And but I think if you really want, it's one of those things. If you're really passionate about something, you will figure out a way to do it. If you feel like you can sort of make sense out of complete chaos, because everybody who's met us ever since we started doing this is just taken aback at how we are continuing to do it and not folding, because it seemingly feels like there is no money in this, but that's really not the point. I feel we are at that precipice where we're trying to like foresee what the entertainment of tomorrow can be that is alternative, which is not mainstream Bollywood, and why can something that is as mainstream in thought as English comedy not be mainstream today. So essentially that's the path we are on. It will take us a few years to get there, but we're willing to go the entire mile.
Right.
So
And you also rent out the space, right? And I remember chatting with you, and you said that earlier it was you guys doing the programming.
Correct.
Most of the time. It was 60-40 or something.
Yeah,
Now it's
so
become 40-60.
Yeah, no. So essentially, when we started the Hive, we started to give Culture Shock, which is our promoter company, a home. So we were doing 80% of the programming ourselves, and we would invite other people to, bring their crazy ideas to us, because we were willing to give everything a shot. And it's good to now see that grow, because now we do 60% programming ourselves, 40% comes from outside.
Okay.
So these are other fringe companies also who are trying to do their own thing. And so we support them as much as we can, and then they go out in the world and they do events at other spaces as well. One of these companies is this really cool group called Jashn-e-Kalam. They do a lot of Hindustani storytelling, from taking on literature from the partition era, from Sad Hasan Manto, Hari Krishnan Panikkar, Rajinder Singh Bedi, and all of that stuff. And it's so good to hear
And
it.
we've listed them many
We've
times.
listed them many times and
It's
been
amazing.
So
curious about
these
them.
guys rent out the space, essentially.
No, so we Not really. So we work on a revenue share with them.
Okay.
We sort of, come at that space where, they come to us with the idea. We help them as much as we can from our end, from a venue and logistics support point of view, and help them promote and market the event.
Yeah.
And once their product becomes bigger than the space, then they take it out. So that feels really good. When you see artists and products grow out of the space and start filling spaces which are 300, 500 seaters, that is when you know, okay, this is working. Something's really right here.
Yeah.
Right.
So, yeah.
Cool. So that's it for the scene. Thanks, Sharin. It was great talking to you.
Thanks, guys.
And,
Lovely being here.
You'll our listeners will read about your events as they already have been.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, and we'll be back with Metro Station.
Are you confused about your future education options?
Not sure about whether you should be doing an MBA?
Or if design school is the right fit for you?
Are you worried about how you would finance your education?
Find answers to this and a lot more education-related topics on this podcast.
Hi, my name is Akhil Daswani. I'm the CEO and co-founder of OnCourse.
Hi, my name is Alisha Mashruwala. I'm the CEO and co-founder of OnCourse.
And we both are your co-hosts for the OnCourse podcast. Tune in every Monday on the IVM podcast app or any other podcast app you may like.
Metro Station.
So in this episode of the Metro Station, we have Ritika Saraf, who runs a tour company called Someplace Else. And we often list your events, the events that you do in the city. One that we list quite frequently is called the Curious City Challenge, which is a treasure hunt that takes place. So,
Is it a treasure hunt? Because I don't think you actually get anything apart from bragging rights.
What's curious is how you run essentially what is a discovery of the city as a treasure hunt. So so why do it as a treasure hunt?
Well, I think, one reason is because I think besides the tour format, a lot of people want to, also have fun, So it actually didn't start as, we wanted to do this because nobody knew Someplace Else. So you wanted people in the city to get to know of it. And it was more a promotional, idea that, this way more people will know about us because it's something in the city, doesn't last more than 3 hours. And it's also very, very, travel focused. What can you do in the city that has, a bit of travel, a little bit of, culture in it? So I've always been interested in the city and the little secrets and hidden corners. So I thought maybe if we make people play a game and we get, people who don't know each other to be in a team and sort of, crack clues and sort of get around and see places that they may have seen as kids or maybe heard of and haven't been there, and maybe they know something else about it, but we kind of bring a different perspective to it in the clue, and then they realize, okay, this is also that. So I think that'll be fun. And can
you describe it a bit? How does it work? And what kind of clues do you give people?
And what you said was that you don't let two people who are who know each other.
very
So if you go with a friend,
it.
you will be put in a different team,
Yes,
right?
we will do that.
And and the other thing that is great about it is that you can actually take any form of transport, isn't it?
You don't have to walk.
You don't have to walk.
You can walk, and a lot of people prefer that. And some of the places are actually so close to each other that there's no point in even taking.
So where I know that you have a South Bombay
and a Bandra one.
Yes.
So for example, let's take the South Bombay challenge. So how does it work? What are the spots, and how do you direct people to each spot, and what are the clues?
Well, I don't know that she can tell us because you can't do it again. If you participated in once, you can't repeat it.
Because
so how do you practice that?
we have a record of all the people who've come for all of these treasure hunts, and now that we personally go for these, so we actually see faces like, you've come before. I can see that you.
But do you repeat your clues?
Yes. So we kind of tell people that this is the
so
first.
You can't talk about it.
I can't tell you the clues exactly, but I'll give you a small idea of what it's like. So, we have specific trails. So if you've been for the first one, you can come for the new trail. We'll start a new Bandra one also. We've done the old Bandra plenty of times now. But, so we know who's come for what, and if that person comes again, we kind of write a disclaimer also at the end that, if you've been for the first trail before, you cannot, join again. We have a list, so we kind of cross-check before we start the hunt.
The way it's done is that when people assemble at a meeting point, which is mostly always an open ground space or a garden, which again not many people know of. Like when we do one in town, we start at Cross Maidan Garden, and that when people come, they're like, okay, was this the first clue? Because it was difficult to find it, So it's not very far from Churchgate Station. Everyone, they all gather, and then we kind of talk about it, and we start making teams with the with the help of chits. So, and then we already know who's friends with whom, because they've either come together or they've registered, for friends or whatever. And they're actually very happy to not be in, some people make very special requests that can we please be in each other's team because we wanted to do this together. I say, no, it's just 2.5 hours. How difficult is it to stay without friends?
You can be apart for 2.5 hours.
Then you can hang out later. How does it matter? So, so they're happy to do it. And once the teams are done, we tell them a little bit of what the instructions are, the rules and everything. And they're given a scroll of clues. So you have to you can't can't open it before I say the word go. So they open it, and then all the clues in the hunt are in that scroll. So it's also a strategy game. So apart from just knowing where this can be, you should also know where to go first, because not all the places are all crunched in the same area.
So you're given a scroll with all the clues at one time?
Everything at one time, so that as a team you can actually figure out, even if you know the answers, you have to figure out where to go first so that you can save time. And then so basically then everyone is out there, and they're solving those clues. They're all in poetic format, talking about that one location. You get to that location, and then there is a task written down there as well, and you have to do that task.
What are the tasks?
Very simple, take a selfie or get something. So I mean that's the thing that people find simple, at least, because they think that the clues are difficult to crack.
Get something, you said. So
you may have to purchase something, or you may have to eat something at a food vendor, but they're all very bare minimum. So in the instructions before, even on Book My Show or wherever you read, they say that
cash.
Just carry 100 rupees per person, and that's the max that you'll spend on the treasure hunt, including your cab fare and things like that.
In poetic format.
Yes.
So
she really wants you to give at least one clue.
Are they rhyming clues?
Yes. No, I mean. So they'll the clues, yes, of course, the poetic format. I don't have one right now. I would have read it out to you, but they just talk about something people may have noticed but have not. Again, the perspective thing, right? You'll see a different place in a different perspective. Just for an example, so if you go to Mount Mary Church, you'll see, a lot of people take their shoes off and enter the church. You'll see a lot of shoes right under the board that says, please don't take your shoes off. You'll see that. I've seen that so many times. It's, it's very difficult to miss. But, and why is that? It's a church. You're not expected to take your shoes in. But because there are a lot of Hindus who were converted, into Catholics.
Or also a lot of Hindus who go there because Mount Mary has sort of acquired this kind of, all religion and it's also a tourist spot and all of that, but mostly even people who are religious Catholics, they have been converted in the early days. So for them, when you're entering a place of worship, you cannot go with your shoes inside. So that's why they take their shoes off. So it's something so simple, which even if you've been to Mount Mary 10 times, you may not have noticed, but that becomes a part of the clue, So,
no, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know that.
Not that I've been many times, but
I've been to the altar, but I haven't really been to the church that many times. So
it's outside the main gate, the signboard, and just underneath you'll see the shoes.
Interesting. You guys also do some food trails.
Yes, we do.
Wait, now before you get to the food trails, you mentioned that there is actually a treasure to be won.
Yes, we give out gifts. So basically, the team that cracks all the clues correctly in this least possible time, they get each member of the team gets a small gift, and it's mostly a portable speaker, which is or some books, or a bag of chocolates. So it's not just
so there is a treasure. Okay, so speaking of bag of chocolates, tell us about the food trails.
Okay, so there is one food trail and one food pop-up of sorts. So the pop-up is actually something we do in Mud Island, because there is a home cook who will make a full Malwani meal, and you eat it on a banana leaf, and she'll tell you about the ingredients of why that particular cuisine is such and where it comes from and things. And there's like a lot of fish and a lot of basically fresh Malwani food that you can eat. We all sit down and on the floor, and it's a floor sitting banana leaf. So that's one thing we do. And the second is a food trail in Fort in town, South Bombay, where we basically highlight very hole-in-the-wall kind of places. Not many people know of these places, and Fort has a lot of eateries, and it's primarily because there's so many people back in the day who had, who are working here, and they need their kind of food for lunch. So
different communities.
Yes, different communities.
We did a Fort map actually.
You
on the
can
site
use a lunch map as part of your future.
For your food trail.
I'll take that.
So many Mallu places, for example, which I'm sure are on your trail.
Yeah. I mean, the full sadhya that you get at one of the places.
Taste of Kerala, and what is the other one? Hotel
Deluxe.
Yeah.
So how many places do you all typically cover in this?
In that we cover 4 to 5 places.
Okay.
So we'll start with Brunmas ka chai. Then we'll move on to a place that serves Mangalorean food. So you'll have like your chicken kodi roti, as well as soul curry, which not many people have the palate for, I realized. But
so you do a set menu per place?
Yes, a set menu every place, and enough for vegetarians as well as non-veg folks. So in between, we also sort of look at a few places in Fort, like the Asiatic Library. We talk about the Bombay store and its significance in the Swadeshi movement back in the day. We talk about Hanuman Circle Garden. And basically why this culture of like eateries around Fort came up.
So what I like about you guys is that you'll do what other people do, but you'll do it with a twist. And I think that's what you'll try to make different, right?
Yeah.
You even got a Dharavi walk that you do, right?
Yeah.
So now Dharavi is a place that actually is covered so much. So I mean, how do you sort of approach it?
Actually, Dharavi, the tour is, you can only make it you can't really change the format as much, because there is only a very small part of Dharavi that you're allowed to do this tour in. So when we do this tour, we kind of do it, like students basically who belong to the slum, they do the tour, and they're also like, hip hop artists or, the kind of, they're dancers or,
B-boys. Oh,
yes,
wow. So are they members of South Dandy or Swadeshi Dandies?
South Dandy Squad.
They changed their name, and then there are a bunch of them actually. There's Dopadelics, but I think that they would be a little too high to actually conduct this tour.
Thriving hip-hop scene in Dharavi.
Very much, yeah. So like at the end of the tour, we actually ask them to sort of
perform.
Do a bit, and they do it, and everyone's very happy about it, So the whole idea with the Dharavi tour is that like a lot of people who come from abroad have this on their itinerary, that when they come to Bombay, they have to do the Dharavi tour. But not many people who are actually in the city know that you can actually, do this tour. And most of the people who've attended my Dharavi tour are Bombayites, and not a lot of people, like everybody was just like, okay, I didn't know this about the slum, and I didn't know that I can, see it from so close. And the thriving small scale industries is really, really like interesting and insightful. So for me, it's more like introducing the idea of, understanding and, seeing Dharavi for people who live in Bombay, rather than just promoting it to people who are not from here.
Cool. I mean, we've talked about all your various walks, most of them, I think. But what about yourself? How did you start? What made you start someplace else?
What made me start? So basically, I used to work with a small startup called High on Travel before I started someplace else, which was at that point promoting experiential holidays, which now is the thing. But at that point, there was like nobody else.
Are they still around?
Sorry?
Are they still around?
No, they're not. So it was really exciting to sort of promote, offbeat holidays and very different cultural experiences all over the country. So when I now I always wanted to do something of my own, and I quit, and I said, how can I make this more engaging rather than just personalizing holidays for somebody and them doing it and engaging it with, like basically just staying at like a fancy hotel which is culturally built in a particular way or in a Haveli or things. It has to be more activity oriented. So I thought I'll basically start with holidays and getaways, which have a very different twist to them and more culturally engaging. And then from there we came to more weekend activity formats, because I realized that there are things to do in the city, but not so much outdoorsy stuff. And that's when we sort of came up with our camping getaways, and like we did one thing in Goa which was like we combined a Goan culinary experience with whitewater rafting and a stay at a very old Portuguese villa kind of a thing. So these are all the experiences that
and when did you start?
So I started in June 2014. Yeah, that's when I started.
And you do some treks also quite regularly.
Yeah, we do
right?
treks.
Yeah.
So those are like basically again so trekking in like it's not a new concept for Mumbaikars, but it is for a lot of Mumbaikar, like a lot of people who are young and who are just scared with the word trek. Like they're just, oh my God, I can't do a trek, I'm too unfit, or I don't think I can finish it, I don't think it's my scene. So we kind of, only do treks that are easy and are something that people, will enjoy for sure, because it's not the difficulty level, but it's how amazing the overall experience is and the view is from the top, and eating local food and interacting with people who are, as excited about this trek as yourself. So basically we're very picky about what kind of treks we do. We don't want to go do very, very hardcore treks that test your, endurance and things like that.
What's really the most popular among these?
The most popular type of, event, cycling.
Really?
Yes.
Wow, okay.
So when Sharin was talking about the flash sale concept for her big mic, I realized that that's what happens when we put up a cycling event. It's crazy. Like, one would think that Mumbai is lazy. I mean, they're happy to wake up at 4:30 and be at a particular place in Bandra or in Warsaw or in town at 5:30 or 5:45 and cycle for like 20 to 25 kilometers.
Wow.
Very happy doing that.
Cyclists are particularly committed.
But there's so many of them. That's what's amazing.
Yeah, these days if you get out of your house at 6 a.m, it's the roads are full of cyclists.
There's this whole midnight cycling thing that's really big, because every time I see cyclists, it's actually not at 6 a.m, but I see them at like 1 a.m. Because I see them passing by my house, because I think they do
I've
like
seen
this.
Them at Perra Road
they
as
do
well.
this sort of, I think, town to Bandra thing that is like starts at midnight, and it's called a midnight cycling group.
Yes, that's true. So midnight cycling is of course very popular. It's also because a lot of people don't happily wake up at 6 a.m.
Oh, it's also much safer to cycle in the middle of the night where there's not much traffic. I
would
guess.
think 6 a.m. is safer.
Yes, it's safer. 6 a.m. is safer.
6 a.m.
not so many drunk people.
When you talk to the ladies,
home.
they'll say 6 a.m. is safer, not midnight. But it's definitely easier, because when on a Saturday, like you're done with hanging out and maybe your lunch and everything, and you can just like cycle through the night and then sleep all day on Sunday. Like that's the mindset that people come with. And also the weather is obviously okay. Like it's definitely better than what it would be in the late mornings or any other time of the day in Bombay, which is why midnight cycling has also caught up. But like so cycling, you might think that there are a lot of cyclists in the city. That's not true. There are quite a few, but majorly there are a lot of people who aspire to cycle, more than a few kilometers.
I aspire to cycle,
right? So
but
like,
I can't.
No,
I don't know how to cycle either. It's
perfectly okay. We have a learn how to cycle program.
Oh, you do? Oh, let's tell us about that. I think we all need to cycle.
We all teach balance.
So it's in Bandra,
and in a very secluded place,
when nobody can recognize you.
We
will edit this out of the podcast.
Oh my God! I realize that's a talking point. Nobody can see you. Nobody will think that you're like what 30 something and you don't know how to cycle.
We send instructors to your building compounds.
That we'll start doing shortly. But right now you have to travel for this. Like, come on, a little pain is okay.
You wear masks and cycle.
Yeah. You can say it's for the pollution, because Bombay is.
Yeah.
So you actually have something like that?
Yeah, we do actually. I mean, we just had one person who had to, he's traveling to Europe today, like tonight, and he was like, I want to ride a cycle, learn how to ride a cycle.
You know, I know a couple of people like this who sort of a friend of mine who actually sort of learned how to cycle because she was going to Amsterdam and had to learn how to cycle there.
Yes. So and you'll be surprised because this is not so much like out there as compared to all our other events that you can learn how to cycle through, someplace else. But most of the inquiries we get are from adults. Like not a lot of people want to call me saying that,
You paused before saying adults.
No, like adults. I mean, there are a few who say, okay, I have a 6-year-old and she wants to learn how to cycle and, this is Diwali vacation and so on. But a lot of adults are like, I want to learn how to cycle. So
I might just call you up and say, can I?
So there is no there's really nothing to be ashamed of because it literally takes 4 days or 5 days at max to learn. Our program is 5 to 7 days, so we think that this should be done in 5 days, and you learn how to balance, and you can sort of ride. So it's only between 6 and 9 a.m. where the traffic is a lot less and all of that, and there is a gear cycle on rent available at that spot, and you don't really have to bother getting your own.
You can't get training wheels.
Unfortunately, no. So,
but you have what are those elbow pads and knee pads?
Insurance.
Well, again, another suggestion I might want to completely.
I don't know how this has turned into a conversation, but yeah.
Because we didn't know someplace else was doing this. This is a discovery.
We discovered it. We actually never sent us listings for this.
This is not a listing because you can take it up anytime. It's not one of those things that, okay, this weekend we are hosting a cycling
this is fantastic information to have, and you might just hear from
because I know a lot of
one or all of us
Yeah.
wanting to learn how to cycle.
Fair enough.
Anyway, so that's it for Metro Station, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks so much for being on.
Thank you for having me here. This was fun.
If you like listening to the podcast, check out Geek Fruit. Hosted by Uber geeks Tejas Menon and Jishnu Guha, this show talks about geek culture from an Indian perspective. Star Wars, comic books, science fiction and fantasy, TV shows and more.
Excuse me भैया, excuse me.
बोलिए मैडम.
मेन्यू में क्या है?
मेन्यू में सीन अनसीन है, पॉडकास्ट है, ऑन कोर्स है, साइरस है, मेड इन इंडिया, रीडिस्कवरी प्रोजेक्ट, एम्पावरिंग सीरीज, सेक्स वैक्स है, IVM लाइक्स है, सिंप्लीफाइड है, कीपिंग इट क्वियर है, टिंग्स एंड डेस्टिनेशंस है, माय नेबर सकरबर्ग है और द फैन गराज है. आपको क्या चाहिए?
एक बार रिपीट कर देंगे क्या?
रिपीट नहीं करता हम. आप जाओ IVMpodcast.com पे और सुनो ये सब, या फिर डाउनलोड करो उनका ऐप. सब आपकी उंगलियों पे.